If you're using AI to generate art to gather inspiration for your SVG designs, then choosing the right tool is important. And today I'm going to run a little experiment where I'm taking the same design prompt and I'm going to run it through 3 popular AI generators to see how they compare. I think prompting is one of the things that people often get stuck on when they're using AI. What words should you use? How do you effectively explain to whatever AI program you're using what it is that you want? And while we won't spend too much time on prompting in this video, I do think it's important to point out that we don't need to overcomplicate our prompts. Start out simple and see how AI responds, and then you can adjust from there. The more that you practice using AI, the more familiar that you'll become with what works and what doesn't. And I always recommend keeping like a Google Doc or some kind of note system where you can keep track of the keywords and different prompts that are working well for you. So to keep things simple for this test, I'm going to use the same basic prompt across 3 different programs. And my hope is that this prompt will generate images that are ideal for gathering inspiration for laser design. And the prompt that we're going to use is vintage style illustration featuring adorable geese in a minimalist doodle-like aesthetic. Use simple, loose, hand-drawn lines to achieve a playful, whimsical feel. And then depending on the program that I'm using, since they all work a little differently, I might adjust some settings and see if we can improve our results. But we'll first just start out by seeing how each program interprets our prompt. So the 3 programs that I'm going to use for this experiment is Midjourney, DALL, and Firefly. And I chose these 3 programs simply because these are the ones that I'm most familiar with. So let's get started. We're going to dive into Midjourney first. So to use Midjourney, I did have to subscribe, and their lowest tier is about $10 a month. So that's what I'm using in this video. I have used Midjourney in the past, but it's been a while, so I'm really not that familiar with it anymore. But I did want to give it a try again because I feel like Midjourney is one of the more well-known generators, and I wanted to see how it would compare to the other 2, DALL and Firefly. So I have my prompt already copied. We'll just paste it here in this prompt box. Oh, and we do need to go over to create. Okay, not too bad. I feel like there's definitely some potential here. You know, if you wanted something that was more whimsical, I feel like you could just clean up some of these lines in your design program. Maybe make it look a little more structured than it is. Might be a little too loose and whimsical, even though that's what I asked for. It might be a little bit too much for my personal taste. But these ones are pretty cute. I think these ones are really cute. I think there's a lot of potential with this one. So not too bad, but it's interesting how different all 4 of these are. Now you could take this prompt and run it again. You could tweak some of your keywords. You could go for completely different styles. So in this prompt, I went for a vintage style because that's just what I tend to lean into. But you could do cartoon style. You could do cutesy, modern. Like there's so many different things. You really could just play around with all the different styles, see which one you like the best. And then I would just keep a record of that. Keep a running Google Doc of all the keywords and the prompts that you like. Maybe even take some screenshots or download these images and just create like a whole database for you to refer back to if there's something specific that you want. And as part of my mini course from AI to SVG, I do have a Notion template that I've built that is a database where you can keep all of your prompts, whether it's for art or just prompts that you use in ChatGPT or whatever program that you use. It's just a great place to store all of that. And if you're interested in that, there is a link in the description for you to learn more. I'm not going to make any tweaks in Midjourney. I probably would if I wanted to spend some more time on this, but I feel like we have some good enough results that I could definitely use these. Especially this one. I think this one's really cute. But now I want to take this exact same prompt and see how it compares to DALL. So let's head over there. And if this looks familiar, this is because DALL is used through ChatGPT. Now, if you're not subscribed to DALL and you're just using the free version of ChatGPT, you are limited on how many images you can generate each day. I think the limit is 5. So just be mindful of that. But if you are already subscribed to ChatGPT, like I am, I pay $20 a month to have access to some of the plus features in ChatGPT, and DALL is one of them where there's not limits, kind of. You can only generate so many images at a time, and then it will tell you you're generating images too fast, you need to wait 5 minutes, and after you wait, then you can start generating again. So it's kind of unlimited in the sense that you really could just spend all day generating images, but it's going to force you to take breaks in between after like 8 to 10 images. So kind of annoying, but it's just how it works. So let's copy in that prompt and see what kind of results we get. And DALL-E only generates 2 images at a time, whereas Midjourney generated 4. So that's one nice thing about Midjourney is you do get more images. This one gave us 2, but what's interesting is both of these images are way more similar to each other than Midjourney. All 4 of those images were really different. So it almost feels like you'd be able to really nail down a style in DALL-E. And for me, I kind of like that. It doesn't really have to be much of a question mark what I'm going to get. And these are pretty cute. I like that it gave me some different variations. It wasn't just 1 or 2 geese. It gave me a whole bunch to pull from. Now, obviously, there's some like funny things going on with some of them, but not too bad. I feel like you could definitely piece things together and create something different. And these ones are pretty cute too. Now, one thing that I do like about DALL-E is you're pretty much having a chat. I could say again, click enter, and it will generate it again. I don't necessarily have to put in the prompt. I can even make a tweak where I say I want it to be a duck instead of geese, and it will keep the rest of this prompt in mind. It will just switch out the subject, which is kind of nice. So you really can just like communicate back and forth, where in Midjourney, you're just prompting. Okay, so we'll just stop here with DALL-E. These are okay results for that prompt. Definitely very different from Midjourney. And let's see how this prompt works in Adobe Firefly. Okay, these look way more detailed than I would like it to be. I did say minimalist, so I was hoping it would keep things simple, and it didn't seem to do a great job of that. These are way more artistic than I need them to be for my purposes. So one thing that is nice about Firefly, there's all kinds of settings and things that we can tweak in here and really try to refine it. Sometimes that can feel overwhelming because there is so much, but it is also nice that you have those controls, and it's one of the reasons I feel like Firefly is one of the more beginner-friendly programs to use. So for this particular prompt, if I was wanting to refine this a little bit more, I might tweak some things in the prompt, but I would probably tweak some of these settings. So we have different effects. If you click all, you can see all of these different effects. There's so many of them. And all the way at the very bottom, under concepts, is simple. So you could click more. You can actually click as many as you want under effects. It will just apply all of those. You'll see whatever ones you're clicking on, they'll apply here underneath the prompt. And if you want to get rid of them and experiment, you totally can. And you could just keep generating over and over. I'm not going to spend too much time doing that. Let's just see what happens just by clicking simple, see if it'll give me anything better. Okay, that really didn't do much. So that's interesting. In another video, I am going to do a simple walkthrough of Adobe Firefly because we really could spend quite a bit of time in here tweaking and really trying to help the AI understand what it is that we're trying to achieve with our prompts. And by just putting in a basic prompt, I think it's pretty clear that it doesn't quite work very well with Firefly. So in another video, we'll take a deeper dive into Firefly. One of the reasons I really like Firefly is if you're already subscribed to Adobe, then you get access to this. So you might as well take advantage of a program that you already have access to that you don't have to pay anything extra for. If you're not subscribed to Adobe, at the time of this video, it's $10 a month and you get 2,000 credits. And I think that includes both images and video, but I'm already subscribed, so I haven't looked into it too much. Might be a little different than that. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into Firefly in another video because I do think it's a great tool, but I don't think it's super great if you're just relying on prompts. Now, if I'm considering whether an image that I've generated will work well for my laser designing purposes, there's 3 things that I like to keep in mind. And the first one is detail. So how much detail is there? Is there too much detail that simplifying it for the laser might completely change the vibe? So for example, I think there's way too much detail in these Adobe Firefly images. If I were to simplify the duck, I think it would just look a little bit weird because right now the detail is making it feel a lot more realistic. Whereas if I'm simplifying it for the laser, I'm removing a lot of that detail because that really just isn't going to work well. for the type of designs that I like to create, at least. And I just think it's going to be a completely different vibe, completely different feel after I simplify that bird. Not always, it's definitely worth experimenting, but usually right off the bat, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to use that image. There's too much detail, there's too much modifying there. The next thing that I like to consider is accuracy. So how well did the program generate the image? Are there any strange features? Did it understand my prompt and the different things that I asked for in that prompt? Again, Adobe Firefly does not do great with the prompts because I asked it to be simple, minimalist, and that's not what I got. However, I do feel like DALL-E and Midjourney were much better at that. Sure, there's still some detail, but overall, it's a pretty simple image, definitely more of a cartoon feel or an illustration versus like a realistic painting like we're getting in Adobe Firefly. And I think with DALL-E too, it really understood the vibe that I was going for. All of these images are pretty similar, whereas these 4 that were generated in Midjourney, they're all pretty different. I'd say that they still carry the same vibe, but they're still all completely different. So I think DALL-E wins as far as understanding the prompt and the things that I asked for. And I say Midjourney is second, but still a great option. Like I'd still be happy with these results and feel like I could use them. And then the third thing is vector conversion potential. So how much tweaking will be needed to convert this to an SVG? Now, this completely depends on what it is that you're making. I don't usually use an AI image as is. I will bring it into my design software and I'll make some tweaks. So for example, if I really liked this goose and I felt like I wanted to use this as a reference for whatever artwork I'm creating for my design, but you know, this is kind of weird. Maybe the way he's standing is a little weird. Maybe I want his head to be positioned a little bit different. Those are things that I would look at and consider, like how much tweaking is there going to be if I'm using this as a reference to get me to my final design. I'd say that this goose over here, I don't really see many people creating designs where a goose is standing in that position or that pose where it's kind of slightly angled. And I think that's really cool. I think that's kind of unique. So using this as a reference, I don't think there would be a ton of tweaking. Now, one of the biggest challenges with AI art is that AI loves to add all kinds of shading and tiny intricate details that really don't translate well to vector format. I'm not throwing these images into an SVG converter, so it's not super, super important, but if you're anything like me, my brain gets so confused when there's just too much going on. And sometimes I really like the image that I got, but when I go to simplify my design in my design program and I remove all the shading and all the detail, sometimes it gives off a totally different look. Kind of like I was talking earlier about these geese from Adobe Firefly. It's just too detailed for me. And I have found if I can get a clean, minimal image, then it gives me a much better idea on how the final product will end up. And I want AI to speed up my design process, not complicate it more, which is why for this experiment, I would definitely lean towards using Midjourney and DALL-E. But based on our criteria and seeing all 3 of these comparisons next to each other, I think the best is DALL-E. This is the one that I think is the most consistent, gives me the most options, and I feel like it really understands my prompts and what it is that I'm asking for and trying to achieve. So of all these 3, I think the winner is DALL-E, but I'd be curious, what do you think? After seeing these, do you disagree with me? Do you think one of these is better than DALL-E? Overall, while AI is definitely making a ton of progress all the time, every day I feel like I'm hearing something new, none of these are perfect solutions straight out of the box. But some of them are easier to use and will get you the results that you want a lot quicker than others will. So what did we learn from this experiment? If you're using AI to generate images to help you create a finished SVG design, I think we've learned that AI still needs a lot of tweaking. Some tools will get you way closer to the finish line than others. And I hope that this gives you a better idea on the type of results that you can get straight out of the box, just with some simple prompting. Again, there's way more to this. It really is a skill learning to communicate with AI, as like crazy as that sounds. It is a skill. You need to learn the different keywords and ways to get it closer to what it is that you're looking for. But if you want to master prompting and generating images to enhance your SVG designs, then my mini course From AI to SVG Designs dives deep into everything that you need to know. And the link is in the description if you want to learn more about that course. And now I want to hear from you. What AI tool do you think did the best job? I'd love to know if we agree or disagree. Now, I feel like Adobe Firefly wasn't given a fair shot at representing what it can do. Is it a perfect program? No, but neither are the other two. But what makes Adobe Firefly different, it doesn't really rely heavily on prompts. You definitely get more options to change up the different settings, as you saw with that sidebar that was on the left and all the different effects that you could apply. But I do think because they give you so many options for making adjustments, it's one of the best programs for beginners. And chances are, if you're an SVG designer like me, you probably are already subscribed to Adobe. You probably use Illustrator for all of your SVG designs. And if that's the case, then you already have access to Firefly. You don't have to pay anything extra. You don't have to subscribe to something more. So if you're just wanting to get started with AI and use something that's easy, Adobe Firefly really is a great option for that. It's what I started with. So in part 3 of my AI laser design series, I'm going to do a simple walkthrough on how to use Adobe Firefly and just some different tips and tricks that I've learned along the way as I've been playing with this over the last year. So thank you for joining me for part 2, and I will see you in part 3.